I think most of you've met these people. This is my son Joseph. This is my son, this is Bob Burridge. Most of you know Bob. This is Carolyn Fogle. And Carolyn, yeah, there you go, yay.
Thank you.
And this is Holly. And this is Jim, the TV producer.
And Jim, the cinematographer.
Coming around, this is Frank Webb. Where are you, Frank? Yeah. And Barbara Webb, his wife, right next to him. Barbara, we're glad to have you here.
Yeah.
Coming on around is Kate Burridge. And whatever Bob has done good, Kate's responsible for. And coming on around is Ann Abgott. And Edwina. Edwina is our dwarf that works for us.
She's the eighth.
And Kathy Futrell, is Kathy here?
Kathy is not here.
Kathy is not here. Okay. And what this was going to be this evening was just a fun evening of getting acquainted and getting to know each other and tell you how much we appreciate you, appreciate your being here, and answer any questions that you might have. So we thought a good way to start would be for me to take a couple of minutes and tell you how Cheap Joe's got started. Would you like to hear that?
Yes.
Is there anybody that wouldn't like to hear it? Oh, 2 over here. 3, 4. Right.
I think we were outvoted.
Yeah. Those that don't want to hear it can put their hands down now. Oh, because you're going to hear it anyhow. We have, I was a pharmacist, and is there other pharmacist family here? Right here. Where's the son, John?
He's around the corner.
He's got the granddaughter, maybe. Anyhow, I was a pharmacist at Boone Drug Company in downtown Boone, the old store, for many years, and in the early 80s decided to take up this thing called watercolor, because every time I would see one I would think, I can do that, that's so simple. That's an easy thing to do. And it didn't work quite that way. I went to the dime store, bought a little set of Prang watercolors and their little watercolor paper that's of course made of wood pulp, and I was trying to copy this painting. It was about this long. I still have the print, this long and that high. And many of you have seen it. It's a little building up in the left-hand corner. A wheat field kind of comes down and crows over it. And it had a name at the bottom that I really wasn't that familiar with. It was Andrew Wythe. And I tried to copy it, but it didn't work too good. And one year for Christmas, a good friend of mine who taught English at ASU gave me 3 lessons with an art professor at ASU named Noyes Capehart Long. And I took my paintings to show him. He said, bring your paintings, and I did. And I had several full sheet paintings that I had piddled with. And Noyes looked through them, and he found one of the paintings, and he said, look at this little place. The painting's this big. He said, look at this right here. He said, how'd you do that? And it's the size of a postage stamp. And I said, I don't know. He said, that's great. He said, you go back and make that your painting. And I left that night feeling so good, never realizing that 99.9% of the painting was not too good. That it was the little part there that worked. And anyhow, I was just spurred on. The next time I went, he said, he said, bring your brushes and your paint and stuff. So I took my little set of watercolor, and he said that night, he said, you're going to have to get some new material. He said, you can't do this thing with these things you got. He said, I'm going to give you a list. And he did. He gave me a list. He gave 10 colors of Winsor Newton, 15 ml watercolor, a John Pike palette, Winsor Newton Series 7 size 14 brush. Now, those of you that know, they don't make that brush anymore. And it's about the size of your thumb. And I didn't have a clue about it. And nobody in Boone sold art material. So I drove to Charlotte, gave the lady at an art store my list, and started looking around. In a few minutes she came over and she said, I have your material for you. Would there be anything else? And I think I'd picked up a bottle of masking fluid maybe and something else. I'd never heard of these. And a book. And the book was entitled My Way with Watercolor by Ted Kautsky. That I don't know if you knew Ted or not. You knew him? And
He speaks well of you.
he what?
He speaks well of you.
Thank you. He speaks well of me, Bob said. He died in 1949. Yeah.
Been talking with him?
Anyhow, the lady comes over and she said, I have your stuff ready. I said, okay. Anything else? I said, I'll take this. Right, what it was. She said, it'll be $690. And I said, oh, I forgot to tell you, 25 sheets of Arches paper, 300 pounds. Because he told me, he said, don't go buy a sheet of paper or you'll never become a watercolor artist. You buy 25 sheets. Otherwise, you're going to be scared to death you're going to ruin your sheet of paper. That's the truth, which I still advocate today. Don't buy 25 sheets, buy 100. How am I doing, Kate? Kate's right there. I'm doing good. So anyhow, I thought, good grief, what have I done? So I paid for it, drove back up the mountain, and on the way back up, I thought, you know what? I should sell this stuff in the drugstore. Drugstores sell everything. So this was my goal. So I set out to find a source and couldn't find one. And a friend of mine in Durham invited me to come to the North Carolina Watercolor Society meeting. And it was about 1985, I think, or 86. And so I go to the meeting, and there at the door was this little fella handing out these little tubes of Rembrandt watercolor. And I said, are you the salesman for Rembrandt? He said, yep. I said, I'm the salesman for Rembrandt and Arches paper. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, I want to talk to you when you get a minute. He said, okay. So after he got a minute, he came over. I said, I want to start buying from you. I want to open up an account with you. He said, great, you have an art store. I said, no, I have a drugstore. He said, a drugstore? I said, yeah. He said, no, we can't sell to you. I said, why? He said, I'll tell you why. He said, I sell to a dentist up in New Jersey, and said, he doesn't do any good at all. I said, a dentist? Wait a minute. I said, my drugstore's in the middle of town. Everybody comes there every morning for coffee. They love it. And I said, I can't imagine, go to the doc, I got this root canal, and I want to get a tube of Winsor Newton Red and one. I said, it doesn't happen that way. No, he said, I can't do it. Wouldn't do it. Well, that evening, they had what they called, and the first time I'd ever been to one, a cash bar. And it's a place you go up, and if you take your cash, you can buy a drink. And I went over there, and there stood my friend with a drink in his hand with some salt around it. And I said, Steve, how you doing? Oh, he said, I'm doing good. And I said, what is that you're drinking? He said, that's a margarita. I thought, margarita from Boone, North Carolina. We didn't have margaritas, you know. We had White Lightning and moonshine. That was about it. Anyhow, he drank his margarita, and I said, how about another one? I'm buying. And he said, well, that'd be all right. So he drank that one, and we talked a little bit. And I said, like another drink, Steve? Well, he said, one more be all right. So he drank his third drink, and I said, Steve, I wish you'd reconsider selling me art material. Hell, he said, I'll be glad to. He said, I sell to a dentist up in New Jersey, and he really sells the stuff. So
That's good. That's good.
I held his feet to the fire and placed an order, and that was our first order that came into that drugstore.